76 people burned alive, and the government watched it happen. But here's the part nobody talks about. Nobody really knows what started the fire. This is the story of 51 days that shook America. A standoff between federal agents and a religious group living behind barbed wire in the Texas flatlands. A story about faith pushed to its absolute breaking point. About power, fear, and a catastrophic failure that still haunts us today. This is Waco. It starts, like so many disasters do, quietly. A small religious community settles outside of Waco, Texas. They call their compound Mount Carmel Center. From the outside, it looks like almost nothing. A few buildings, some farmland, maybe 100 people living together following their leader, studying scripture. Their leader's name is David Koresh, and if you'd met him in 1990, you might not have thought much of him. A high school dropout from Houston, quiet, a little awkward. But the man could play guitar and he could preach. And when David Koresh preached, people listened. Not just listened, believed. Deeply, completely, with everything they had. He told his followers he was the final prophet, that he alone could open the 7 seals described in the book of Revelation, that the end of the world was coming, and that Mount Carmel was where God's chosen people would survive it. People left their families for this man, moved across the country, gave up their savings. And they weren't uneducated, gullible people. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, people who had something to lose, people who chose him anyway. But something was growing inside that compound, something the outside world was about to take very serious interest in. By 1992, a UPS driver makes a routine delivery to Mount Carmel. One of the packages breaks open. Inside, grenade casings. Empty, but enough to raise a flag. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms starts watching. What they find over the next several months disturbs them. Koresh and his followers had been stockpiling weapons, legally purchased firearms modified into something much more dangerous. The ATF believed they had machine guns, grenades, and enough firepower to outfit a small army. They also received allegations of child abuse inside the compound, of young girls being taken as Koresh's spiritual wives. Former members were coming forward with stories that were hard to hear. The ATF decides they need to move. They apply for search and arrest warrants. The judge signs off. February 28, 1993. The plan is a dynamic entry, a raid, fast and overwhelming. 76 ATF agents in cattle trailers rolling toward Mount Carmel just after 9 in the morning. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Someone tips off Koresh, or at least that's what the evidence suggests. A local TV cameraman who'd been tipped off about the raid stopped to ask for directions from a mail carrier near the compound. That mail carrier happened to be David Koresh's brother-in-law. He warned him. Koresh knew the ATF was coming. The agents rolled in anyway. What followed was 4 minutes of pure chaos. The shooting started, and to this day nobody agrees on who fired first. The ATF says Koresh's followers opened fire. Survivors from inside say the agents shot first. What we know is this: when it was over, 4 ATF agents were dead. 6 Branch Davidians were dead. Dozens more were wounded on both sides. The raid was a disaster. The agents retreated, and now David Koresh and his followers were locked inside Mount Carmel with 100 federal agents surrounding them. The siege had begun, the FBI takes over, and this is where things get complicated in ways that still make experts shake their heads. On one side, you had the hostage rescue team, elite tactical agents trained for high-pressure situations. On the other side, you had negotiators. And here's the problem. They did not agree on strategy. The negotiators were making progress. Slow, frustrating, sometimes infuriating progress, but progress. Koresh would talk for hours, and over the first 2 weeks, 21 children and 14 adults were released from the compound, real people, walking out alive. But the tactical side was losing patience, and as the days dragged on, the pressure from Washington was building. Attorney General Janet Reno, President Clinton, the entire nation watching. Every day that siege continued was a political and operational headache. So the FBI started trying to break the people inside psychologically. They flooded the compound with floodlights at night so no one could sleep. They played recordings of crying rabbits, dying cats, and Nancy Sinatra songs at ear-splitting volume through loudspeakers. Think about that. 100 people, including children, trapped inside a building, sleep-deprived, listening to distorted music and animal screams in the Texas night. The negotiators begged them to stop. They said it was destroying trust and damaging everything they'd built. The tactical team kept going. Inside the compound, Koresh was playing his own game. He'd agree to surrender and then change his mind. He said God told him to wait. He said he needed time to finish writing a manuscript about the 7 seals. His followers believed him completely. These were people who had built their entire lives around his word. Leaving wasn't just physically hard, it was spiritually unthinkable. Former members who watched from the outside said something chilling, that even if every door had been opened and every agent had stepped back, most of those people still would not have left. That's the nature of what had been built inside those walls. Total, consuming belief, and Koresh knew that. So the days stretched on. 10 days, 20 days, a month, 40 days. America was watching, confused and horrified, and then the FBI made a decision that would change everything. April 17th, 1993. Janet Reno approves a new plan. They would use armored vehicles, modified military tanks, to punch holes in the compound walls and pump in a chemical agent called CS gas. Non-lethal, they were told. It would force the people inside to come out. The plan would begin on day 51, April 19th. It was a Monday morning. At 5:59 a.m., the FBI broadcast a message over the loudspeakers. "This is not an assault. We are not entering your compound. We will introduce the gas and wait. The gas is not harmful." Then the tanks moved in. For 6 hours, they pumped CS gas into the building. The wind kept dispersing it. The tanks kept going back, punching more holes, driving deeper into the structure. No one came out. Then, at 12:07 p.m., fire. Not in one place, in multiple places, simultaneously. Wind speed that day, 30 miles per hour, gusting higher. The compound, built mostly of wood and cardboard, went up like a torch. What took weeks to build burned down in less than an hour. 76 people died. 25 of them were children. 9 people escaped the fire alive, and now comes the part that has haunted investigators, journalists, and conspiracy theorists for over 30 years. Who started the fire? The government's official conclusion: the Branch Davidians set it themselves. They say recordings captured voices inside discussing spreading fuel. They say infrared footage shows people moving through the building with accelerants right before the flames appeared. But others aren't so sure. The infrared footage has been picked apart by independent analysts. Some say what the government interpreted as people with accelerants was actually agents, or reflections, or glitches. The fire investigation itself was compromised because the scene was bulldozed before independent experts could fully examine it. A 1999 investigation by a special counsel found that the FBI had withheld evidence, specifically pyrotechnic tear gas canisters that had been fired that morning, something the Bureau had denied for 6 years. 6 years of denying it, and then admitting it. That single revelation cracked open a dam of distrust that had never fully healed. If they lied about that, what else did they get wrong? What else did they hide? We may never have a clean answer. What we do know is this: Mount Carmel was a pressure cooker, a man with enormous psychological power over vulnerable people, a government operation that was badly planned and then doubled down when it started going wrong. A standoff where the people supposed to be negotiating and the people supposed to be applying force couldn't agree on anything, and children in the middle of all of it. Children who didn't choose to be there. Children who had no voice in any of it. Former FBI negotiator Byron Sage, who spent weeks on the phone with Koresh trying to find a way out, said it in an interview years later. He said the word that stays with him, the one that defines Waco, is tragedy. Not conspiracy, not failure, not crime, tragedy, because it was all of those things at once. The reverberations from Waco didn't stop at the compound gates. 2 years later, April 19th, 1995, the exact same date, a truck bomb destroyed the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. 168 people killed, the deadliest domestic terror attack in American history at that time. The man who built the bomb, Timothy McVeigh, said explicitly that Waco was his motivation, that it was revenge. One siege, one fire, 168 more people dead 2 years later. The ripple effects of Waco shaped militia movements, shaped anti-government sentiment, shaped federal law enforcement doctrine. Every hostage situation, every standoff that came after, the lessons of Waco were written into the playbook, and the debate over those lessons has never stopped. Was the problem that the government acted too aggressively, or not aggressively enough? Were the people inside victims of a cult leader, or victims of a government overreach, or both? The honest answer, and the uncomfortable one, is that it's possible to believe all of that at the same time. The land where Mount Carmel stood is still there. A small congregation rebuilt a church on the property. They hold services there to this day. Some of the survivors, the 9 who made it out of the fire, still live nearby. Koresh's body was recovered from the ruins. He died of a gunshot wound to the head. To this day, it's unclear whether someone shot him or whether he did it himself. His followers, the ones who survived, remain split. Some walked away from everything he taught. Some still believe he was a prophet, still believe the end is coming, still believe that what happened at Mount Carmel small was part of a plan too large for human minds to fully understand. That's the part that lingers. Not just the fire, not just the politics, but the human beings who woke up inside that compound every morning, who believed with everything in them that they were exactly where God wanted them to be, and a government that looked at those same people and saw only a threat. Two sides, no real communication, no real understanding, and 76 people who ran out of time before either side figured it out. Here's the question that stays with me. If even one decision had been different, if the ATF had chosen surveillance over a raid, if the FBI had let the negotiators run the operation, if Koresh had chosen to walk out, how many of those people would still be alive? We'll never know. But that's exactly why we can't stop asking. Because Waco wasn't just a moment in 1993, it was a mirror, a reflection of what happens when power and belief collide without wisdom, without patience, without the humility to admit that you might be wrong, and in a country still arguing about the government's role in people's lives, still arguing about religion, about weapons, about authority, that mirror is still pointed right at us. The fire went out 30 years ago. The questions never did.